Hey guys, this is my lyric breakdown for my song Moral Ground featuring Amanda Favorite. This is off of my extended version of the album Message to the People. There are some people who don't know how to care. Let their egos be wide and their throats be bare. So, little backstory on this part, you know, I'm constantly dealing with different types of people every day, as you do. And, I'm just thinking about some people in my life that are just incredibly self centered that I've had to deal with. And that can be very difficult. The song doesn't directly relate to colonialism, although it could very much relate to colonialism, because people who don't care and are ignorant will very easily do dangerous things when their head's not in the right place and do things that create Western thought, the dangerous side of Western thought, things like slavery and genocide. But even just on a personal, more kind of direct level, anytime you're self-centered, and I know this in my own experience, it does create kind of a divide between you and the other person. And, it feels to me like, they have people like that oftentimes can have incredibly wide egos. Having a wide ego to me is just kind of having a very, very large ego and just an ego that kind of stretches everywhere. And it feels to me like when they enter a room, their energy and their ego kind of takes over everything. And that's sometimes really interesting and kind of cool at first, and then it can also be very difficult. And I've dealt with a few people like that myself. But what to me is having a wide ego means when you're really just kind of your entire energy is out there, and that's very difficult. And their throats are bare to me because, it's almost like their teeth. Like I could have said their teeth are bare, but to me, having your throats bare, it's kind of like they're gonna swallow me, and it feels like they're attacking me. But rather than baring their teeth, they're baring their throats, and their throat is it's almost like I could look into their throat and I can kind of see that they're going to eat me. That's obviously just kind of an analogy for how it feels sometimes when people are so into themselves, and you can tell that anything you say to them, they're just going to wipe you away, and they're not going to care what you have to say. And that feels to me like they can eat you at any moment. So it is kind of like a shark with their teeth bare, but I like the image of a throat being bare because it goes further than the teeth for me. It really does go into like, no, because their teeth is just here. But when your throat is bare, I feel like I can actually see inside what they're gonna like. I can see inside where I'm gonna be swallowed whole, and it's even more intimate than just the teeth. So that's kind of why I said the throats. But yeah, that's basically. It's hard when people don't cooperate. Be with whoever safe and sound. Keep your head in the right place and your heart in moral ground. So a huge thing for me is kind of, as I've learned to deal with different types of people, I feel like I'm constantly kind of having to sometimes, control and just be on my toes on a daily basis, and I think that's good. It allows you to really be more aware all the time, and it's really just for me. It's just kind of I try to always spend my time with people that make me feel good, make me feel comfortable. I think that's a good lesson in life in general. Just be with the people that make you happy, and if you can, and this can be hard to do, but try to distance yourself from people that don't serve you and don't make you feel good. If you're interacting with somebody who makes you feel bad about yourself or just makes you feel uncomfortable or uneasy, that's a red flag. And it can take a while to recognize that, because sometimes people can come across like they're okay, and there's something about them that you're addicted to, but you can't quite get yourself away from them. I know what that's like, but it's really important to kind of spend your time with the people that make you happy. And that's basically what that line's about. And that's something I try to live every day. And that means that I'm constantly kind of reassessing the connections I have all the time. And that is kind of how it should be. I mean, I think you're always, you know, you always want to make sure that every interaction you have is worth it and is serving you in some way, and that you ideally help them too, because, it's not a selfish thing. It really should be a two-way street. But what I'm getting at here is that every connection you make should feel comfortable to you, and that's a huge priority. Moral ground, moral ground, moral ground, moral ground, moral ground, moral ground, moral ground. So, if I think about the idea of morality, again, I mean, some people say that, oh, your morals are subjective to you. I don't believe that. I think that there is a very clear sense of right and wrong in this world, very often, and I think we have to recognize that. And it can just sometimes take time to know what's right, know what's wrong, to be able to assess ourselves. But I think life is all about constantly thinking about growing in some way, and I think constantly kind of looking at, okay, who am I with? What are my connections? How do they make sense in my life? And to me, it's just like every person I interact with, I always try to make sure that they always serve me in some way, that there's some type of reason why I'm with them, and that I'm also able to help them, and that there is a two-way street happening, but that there is really every connection you have fits into your life in a fitting way, in a comfortable way, and that's really important. And yeah, I think, for me, morality really comes from just kind of being able to assess yourself and having the humility and being down to earth enough to be able to understand how to grow and kind of look at yourself and look at what you're doing in your life. So it's a constant journey that I think is never over. You're constantly assessing yourself and kind of reevaluating where you are and what you're doing. But that's what I would say just about morality in general. I think it's a complicated journey, but I think it just comes from discipline and humility and being able to really move forward in a comfortable way. There are some people who don't know how to live. Let their ways be close-minded, their thoughts lacking depth. I think that being closed-minded can be helpful sometimes, but I think at the end of the day, it's not really a way to live. I think that if you're closed-minded, you're not really using life to the fullest. I think that, they always say you only live once. When I think about YOLO and what that means, I think it goes deeper to just like, oh, you only live once, so make the best of it. Some people use that as a reason to party or whatever and kind of throw their life away, because to them they're like, oh, it's just like trying to make the best of life. But for me, I feel like what that means is really trying to treat people the best way and trying to treat yourself the best way and really being the person you want to be to the best of your ability all the time. And I think, a lot of people that are too close-minded, their thoughts are not very attractive. They don't really think deeply. They don't really analyze themselves. They don't have the self-reflection ability to really look at what they're doing on a daily basis. So, they're very kind of, I think a lot of those people are kind of barely really real, like they don't act like real people oftentimes. They're kind of barely there. And those people are very difficult to deal with. But yeah, I think it's like you're kind of a shell of a person if you don't really have enough humility to be open-minded and to really use your brain in the best way you can, because I think your brain is kind of meant to, like, if you can really take the time to analyze as much as possible all the time and really have enough humility in your heart and love in your heart to be able to do that, then I think you're way better off than someone who is caught in their own world and doesn't want to get out of that world. Because I think if you're in that space, then you're not using your full potential, I would say. It's hard to be the underdog all the time, being influenced by greed. The earth lacks humanity's sacred heart. Come and plant that seed. So there's kind of two parts to this. So the first part, it's hard to be the underdog all the time, being influenced by greed. There's multiple ways to look at this. For me personally, I've been the underdog in a lot of ways, and I'm not just talking about my native identity, although that is, like I talked about in other videos, part of that means being native, all the things that comes with that, but then also just socially, for various reasons. I know what it's like to not really be understood and kind of not be included in things and not be included as an equal. That's been difficult sometimes in certain circles. And I think some people, you kind of find yourself clinging to them because you think that they really serve you in some way, when they don't truly. I think some people are kind of like drugs, where they have something that you think you can get nowhere else, and you're kind of clinging to them because they have a certain something that kind of stands out at you that you can't get anywhere else. So you find yourself influenced by them and being influenced by their greed that they have for themselves. And I think also being influenced by the greed that you have because you're greedy. They're giving you, you think that they're giving you something you can't get anywhere else, so it kind of makes you greedy. um, so but then at the end of the day, I think when you take a step back from those people, oftentimes they're not really serving you. And it's important to recognize that, to kind of recognize when you're not being really served by somebody. And you can also take that kind of a step further in the political context of, greed creates colonialism and marginalization, all those things. So it's somebody who is influenced by greed, like a colonist who can create all these problems. Um, and Somebody who's the underdog all the time, like a native or anybody who is persecuted, and those two worlds together create havoc and create violence and all the things that the world has to go against. So that would be kind of a short way to describe that. And then the earth lacks humanity's sacred heart. Come and plant that seed. Um, we're living in a world, this is kind of like Indian Eyes and some of my other songs, where like I talk about how we're living in a world that's very Western. And I think humanity's sacred heart is love and understanding and compassion. And if we can go back to those values and plant the seed of those values, then I think we're way better off in really making a change, instead of constantly thinking about progress and constantly thinking about ourselves. And I think if we don't think about that sense of community that's really important, then we're going to be kind of headed towards a very dangerous part of society. Things are better than they were before, so keep your head above ground and keep moving forward, because you beat the score. You beat the score. So, I would actually say this song is kind of similar to my song Optimist Avenue, where sometimes I like to start with thinking about the negative light and then looking at the positive light of the message. And I think in this case, like, this part of the song was written after I exited what I was going through. But I think it's also like, for me, it's the feeling of when you get out of something that's not serving you, what I talked about before. That feeling of when you get out of it, then you're free and you feel better and you feel lighter, you feel more lighthearted. And you beat the score. It's just like you beat, it's just like you won. It feels like you won. It feels like you won when you are able to take care of yourself in the way of getting out of whatever situation doesn't serve you, and again, I think it's just, it's like, yeah, things are tough, but there's always some way to get through them, and there's always going to be something that's better than it was before. So I think you could also, you could take that in a general sense and just think like there's always going to be something that's better. and just kind of think about that and just move forward with that idea. And I think that way you're always going to be moving forward. You're always going to be moving towards something that is on the horizon. And even when you get to that, there's something else. And you're just that, for me, is how my life, that's how I think about my life, kind of moving forward in that way. And yeah, I think if you think that way, then you're going to be happy if you don't let those little things that bug you bother you too much. Just deal with them you feel in the way you feel like you should, and then move on. And but just really keep your kind of holistic mentality active, and then that way there's going to be something there. Hey guys, it's RicoR. Thank you guys so much for watching this genius analysis video. Please be sure to check out the Genius Lyrics site alongside it, link below this video, where there's written versions of a lot of the stuff I'm talking about in the video, as well as some stuff that's not in the video. And also please be sure to check out the original studio recordings. Thank you guys so much, and cheers.